Okay, so rule number 1 of presenting is do not present after lunch. And rule number 2 is do not present before happy hour. So round of applause for all of you making it today. My name is Ryan Bates. I'm a solution architect at Databricks. I work on our retail, CPG, and travel and hospitality team. And just before we get started, I figured I would just talk about me a little bit, since you probably aren't here to learn about empowering business users with Databricks. You're probably here to learn about me. I hate reading. I hate reading so much. For me, it was always a punishment in terms of schooling, and my degree is in biomedical engineering, and everything I read was boring and tedious. So I really prefer picture books. And has anybody read the book, If You Give a Mouse a Cookie? Show of hands. Okay, good. So yes, it is a children's book. That is correct. That's more my speed. And so I wanted to take you all through that book today. So if you give a mouse a cookie, he will probably want a glass of milk. And when you give the mouse that glass of milk, he'll probably ask you for a straw. And then when he's finished, he'll ask you for a napkin, and then he'll look in the mirror to make sure he doesn't have a milk mustache. And this story goes on and on and on, and he has a milk mustache, and he goes outside and he realizes the living room is dirty, so he has to get the broom, and when he has the broom, he realizes the dustpan is full, and then he has to take out the trash, and then he's tired, and the mouse has to take a nap. And at the end of his nap, the mouse wakes up, and he realizes that he's thirsty, and he wants a glass of milk. And then what happens? This entire story starts all over again. What does that have to do with what we're talking about today? I want to tell you a separate story. If you give a business user a dashboard they like. Has anyone heard this story before? And with the power of generative AI and my charming personality, I'm going to tell you a new story today. So if you give a business user a dashboard they like, they're probably going to want to have a filter on it. And you and your team are going to go build out the dimensions and understand what they're looking for and run it through all the cycles and provide this dashboard to them. And when you give them that filter, they're going to realize that there is a custom metric missing that requires very specific custom logic. And you and your team are going to go back and you're going to build that metric and you're going to QA it and make sure it's right, and you're going to give it to them. And when that calculation shows up, they're going to get so excited and wonder if they can have that dashboard in real time. And so now your team's going to go back and you're going to build a streaming data pipeline that takes all the data coming in from all the different sources and running this ETL as fast as you possibly can, and it's going to be ready to go, and it's going to be amazing. And when you give them that real-time dashboard, they're going to want to have alerts pushed to their mobile device so they can understand what's happening as soon as it happens. So your team's going to go back and understand, should I give them the alerts via email, or how do we get it on their mobile device, and who's going to get the alert, and when, and now it's all ready to go. And when the alerts go off, they're going to say, man, I wish I could ask a follow-up question. And they're going to say, it would be so great if we have a chatbot. And you and your team are going to do all this diligence and look through all these vendors and figure out what's the best way to harness this chatbot functionality that they came up with. And you are going to provide to them this amazing, stunning piece of technology where you integrate Databricks and Microsoft Teams into a chatbot that allows them to ask as many questions as they like in real time. And if you give this business user this world-class superpower, they are going to ask you for 5 more dashboards. And we're going to start this entire process over and over and over again. Databricks, our mission is to democratize data and AI for everyone. And if you think about it in your personal life, if there's any question that you possibly have, you pull out your phone and you ask your question. And that idea could not be more opposite in our business worlds. Any question that you have is siloed, and these systems don't communicate with one another. And this idea of what if you can now empower a business user to get these answers to their follow-up questions without waiting for an analyst, which is a really exciting thing, but it's something that we're so used to in our personal lives and we take for granted. Enter AI BI Genie, which is essentially the idea of talking to your data and providing this self-service analytics that business users don't have. And even more importantly, how do I provide a very easy-to-use chat-like interface that's tailored to my business and governed and secure and ready to go that I can roll out to thousands of users with a push of a button? When you build out Genie Spaces, the idea is to tailor it to your data and your business. It's designed around all of the dimensions and the tagging and the descriptions in your data set. It's tied to that user and what things they have access to. It's tied to previous questions that other business users may have come up with. And now you can iterate based on their feedback to say this is working and this isn't working to continue to improve this process. From a fundamental standpoint, how do we design very specific Genie spaces for what a user wants to do? And then how can I take that data and meet a business user where they're at? Specifically in this example, Microsoft Teams, but it could be anything that you like. So Nathan is a data engineering manager from Rooms to Go, and that's exactly what Nathan and his team did.
Thank you, Ryan. And hi, everyone, thanks for coming to this meeting, like Ryan said, just before the happy hour. So I work for a company called Rooms to Go. It's predominantly in the East Coast, and we sell furniture, and we have close to 160 stores, and then we also have online presence. So the first thing, like Ryan made a valid point, like, we have Power BI reports, and it's extensively used, but after the chatbot, everyone started asking, can I have a bot kind of interface? I want to ask questions. So now it became the hot topic. Even though we have cool dashboards and then the Power BI, they kept asking I want more interactive kind of a bot where it can answer questions. And then they also want more in real time. So we thought when Databricks came out with Genie, we liked that interface, and late last August or September, they introduced the Genie API. We were one of the pioneers, we thought we can use this and leverage that and then start using. So at the time, Ryan was our solution architect, and then I called him and then said, I like the Genie API, but I don't want to give my users access to the Databricks interface. I want them to be called from Teams or Slack. So he worked with some of the other architects, and actually he wrote a blog, and then which explains how this interface works. And we tried it, and then it was good. First, technically, let me tell the story. I wanted to give our executives the sales numbers, because as a furniture store, our sales, they want to see the sales. They wanted to see it every 15 minutes. They want to see, did I sell a sofa? Because it's a furniture store. And technically, if we sell a sofa every 15 minutes, we would be in a different shape. But but they keep asking for I want it. And even though we gave them the Power BI and it's in their phone, again it comes to, oh, I have to click this button, that filter. So I want to ask questions. So we created that, our first version is the Sales Genie, which used our sales numbers. But the problem is, with the Power BI, we have row-level security and all those implementation. So, each store cannot see the other store's sales numbers. So with this integration, at that time, we were not able to do it. But our team, especially my team, wants to show something that we can deliver. So we thought that it could be a good candidate for warehouse. So we did this bot, which is answer in real time, and then familiar interface, Teams. Teams is everybody, and even the warehouse guys have the Teams in their phone, so we try to use that. And then the important question is, they want to have context-based answers. In Power BI, you will have reports, you will have graphs, everything. But they want to have talking to a person. They like that kind of interface. So that's their main request. 2 years back, that Power BI report was so good. They said it meets our requirements and everything. Now they said we want chatbot. So we created this data, which is our streaming. We used the streaming live data, which is using DLTs, and then we ingest the data in real time. So we track of all the inventories, and then we will actually use that tables for this interface. So users want to ask questions and get answers in real time. And then this model will get learned based on the questions. When we first did, it took us like 3 weeks or 4 weeks. We let the users, the guys who are going to use, come into the Databricks interface, ask questions. Then we looked at each question they are asking. And then we looked at it, and then the response, whatever the Genie gave. Then some of the response was like it was not right. So we actually created some SQL queries to train the model. Then we gave the instructions how to, because some of the business terminologies, like our guys use the warehouse number. So we need to tell that warehouse number, it has to interpret that, how to interpret that, like those kind of instructions. Then we built this instructions, and then we use the API calls, and then we use the Microsoft Azure bot. So when we deployed this, first thing they said that even though we refresh every 15 minutes the current Power BI reports, still they are not happy. So they said, oh, I went all the way to that end of the warehouse, and then I found out my inventory is not there. Because between that refresh time, that inventory is gone. So, 99 out of 100 times it might work. Only one time that inventory was not there, they made it they will put it in the Teams and say this is not working. So we want every time the user always says real time. That's, if you say it's real time, then they'll be happy. Even if it is internally it's near real time, still they will be happy because you used the word real time. So, so technically this one is near real time because it's coming through the streaming DLT and Kafka. But when we say go and tell them, we'll say near real time. So they will hear the real time part. So then they will be happy. Oh, it's real time. So now let me explain what is the integration behind this Genie, what's the architecture. So it starts with the teams. Then the teams have a web application. So the teams call the Azure bot. That's the second icon. That's the Azure bot service. Then the bot service calls the web application. The web application calls the Databricks Genie API. I sounded very simple, but it took us like a week to write this code. And the web application was written in Python. I was in the next room in the last presentation. She was saying building it in a Databricks apps is much easier than building it in Azure. I agree with it because now I have to ask for somebody to create a resource group, somebody to give me permission, and then the rights and everything. But after it was done, it worked really good. And then we are pretty much happy. And this is more like it's almost same as the previous one, but it's for the the developers. If somebody asks for architectural diagram, this will help. Azure bot has a lot of other channels. You can actually call that bot in Alexa or Slack, or even send a text message. So after you created the bot, the simplest interface calling that bot is Teams, because all you have to do is a simple file, and then if you put it, and then if you give, then it will start showing up in your apps, in your tenant. Then you have to decide who gets the rights. But Slack is a little bit complex, but there are some YouTubes, and you can leverage this And this is the screenshot of our Teams Genie. The first one is like almost what are all the tables, materialized view we used. So it's pretty much like 6 or 7 tables. And then the second screenshot is the instructions we provided. I will explain the story about that, like when I go. So at the end of the presentation, I will tell what to do, what to not do. At the time, I will tell what's the problem with this kind of instructions. And then the third screenshot is we trained the model with certain queries, so it will do its job and it will understand. And again, some of the instructions is like it's an entity relationship diagram, like how it's internally joined between the two, like all those tables. And this is our screenshot. Okay, this is the interface. So now, this is the funny part. I did this demo 2 or 3 times, and if it works, then this may be the first time it works in like a but it works.
We promise.
Yeah, I know that it
works.
works, but I tested like last 1 hour, making sure, and then we even tested, but.
Time to run with scissors, Nathan.
Yeah, so. So I will know the answer within a second. So. Okay. So what happens is normally, behind the scenes, it runs the SQL serverless warehouse. So sometimes we have the inactivity set to 5 minutes, so the SQL warehouse will die. So we told the user, hey, sometimes it's sleeping, so you have to say hi or hello to wake up. So that's what I did. So if I go and look in the monitoring, it will say hi, hello, how are you? Then it will have all those things. So now, technically, the warehouse started listening. So I'm going to ask some simple questions. So basically, I asked a question like, in FL99 is the warehouse name, warehouse number. Give me top 5 SKUs. But again, let's see. It's thinking. Okay, good. It came back. I had a little bit like, like my heart was pumping really hard. Okay. So, like, what I did is like, sometimes because I was training this last 2 hours, it already knew what I'm going to ask. Sometimes if I did not run this for like 2 or 3 days, when I asked the same question, list top 5 SKUs, recently the Genie team made a difference. It will ask by, you want the top 5 based on by quantity or price or something like that. But when I came at 3 o'clock, it asked me that question. But I said by quantity, it still remembers that context. So I decided to take that risk instead of getting that prompt, not to like, shut it down and then my entire demo. So here is what I'm going to do. See, like, I'm going to say like, add a total row. So what I'm now telling is, add a total row, summing up all the quantities. Sometimes it will say, if you ask the same question again and again, it will say, it replied back. Let's see what it happens. So it's now like, I don't know what it's going to do. See, it added a total row. So now I'm going to say, remove the description column from the results. because we are using the hotspot, okay, so now I can say order the
And Nathan, if you asked Genie to do all of this at the beginning in your initial question, it would probably come back with that correct.
Yeah.
And so the idea is, how can you let a user understand how this works and what kinds of questions to ask? And then as people get used to using the tool, now they're getting smarter and smarter
Okay.
how to ask these questions.
So see, now it's responding, it's okay. So I'm going to take some risks. So this is like, see, if you look, I have it complex. So, but if it says no data return, then we have to go and debug. But I gave bunch of instruction. If you list, like I said, list 5 locations for a particular SKU in warehouse, and then I said add a column for quantity, and then I said add a purchase order number, and then receiving date, and then even I said, oh, good.
Pretty good,
Yeah.
pretty good.
So, like, you know, it gave all those, like, I'm actually taking more risk than I've taken that. So I can ask, what's the name of FL99 warehouse? It's called Lakeland because we are Florida-based company. So,
Nathan, I don't know if I approved of these risks.
see, some, you know, like I said, it's going good, so it's listening to me now. Okay. So let me stop taking risks. Let's not do the demo anymore. Let's go back to the
Here, Nathan.
slides.
Here you go, Nathan.
So these are all the references. So I gave credit to Ryan Bates, and these are all the the blogs. So, and then Louis had a very good blog, and then Kyle is also, the first 3 guys are all Databricks, no, actually the 4 are actually Databricks solution architects. So, and they all have a disclaimer, this is not for production, but it's actually in production. Okay? So that Genie, whatever I ran, it's running in, we have 7 warehouses, and we actually, it's now running for almost 70 users, and they've been using it. So,
in hindsight, we should have had a QR code that had all these links. If you Google Genie Teams integration, these will all pop up rather than having to follow the links.
Let me now take you to the more disclaimer stuff. Okay, so Databricks introduced a new connector. Okay, all the connection I did with all that, what they call is, when I did that behind the scenes, our Genie is using personal access token. So if I go to my Databricks interface, see, this is the Genie we are using. If I go to the monitoring tab, see, it's all in my name. So, I am one of the admin in this Databricks. So, it uses, I cannot figure out who created that who sent that query and everything. They made a very simple interface. This was announced in Microsoft Build 2 weeks back, and this blog explains. Now, using Azure Foundry, from the bot, if you actually connect, it will use your Microsoft Entra all the way up to the Databricks. So it will take your login ID from the Teams, and then it will, instead of using the personal access token, it will use the, so this is better interface, and we are actually working on a version 2, which is going to use this in Azure Foundry, and it's going to use the user login. Now we can do the row-level security. Remember that I was still talking about the sales Genie. Now we can have the row level security on the materialized views or whatever the view, and then we can restrict. And now with this connector, it can see multiple genies at the same time. If you have a little bit coding, you can actually call multiple genies from the same interface. We have a prototype, but I don't have it in here. I don't want to take more risks. Like if you say like, hey, tickets genie, ask a question, it will respond. Then if I say, hey, sales genie, then it will run that API. So, and what we are doing is, if I'm a warehouse guy, if I only have tickets genie, it will then send that question to the Databricks. If not, we validate what are all the groups or genies he has access based on the work groups, on the groups in the Entra. If I have a sales question and if I'm not authorized, it will not even send that question to the Databricks. So I will suggest if someone wants to try, use the idea of Ryan Bates' blog, but look at this interface. And Microsoft, if you scroll in the, like Microsoft actually created some code in their GitHub. So this blog, whatever Microsoft did, I think it's going. Yeah, see, there is a blog. And then see, they have the samples. It actually has sample code. You can actually take it, and then you can have this running in few days. So now, since we have another 12 minutes, do you want to add anything, or I can tell some what are all the best practices? Oh, I was about to talk about the instructions. Okay. So this tickets genie, whatever we did, the instructions, when we did this long time back, we actually gave instructions how to join. That's why we created that entity relationship diagram. So we gave the relation like how to join. But after the Genie team's best practices, they say if you have a primary key, foreign key relationship between your tables or the views, it will automatically do it, because the amount of instruction we provide, we actually ran out of room for this instruction. At some point of time, it said it cannot save. Then we called the Genie team and then asked, what should we do? Like, is there a limit? Then they said, if you do as a materialized view, then you can create a primary key, foreign key, then you can remove certain instructions. So I will recommend, if you are following, like I said, we were one of the early adopters. So we did not know all the best practices. So if you do it like a materialized view and everything, and if you have the proper primary key, foreign key, it's actually with that, it was working even much better, and it was faster. So,
Nathan, do you want to talk about maybe your future plans of what is in the roadmap of things that you'd like to accomplish?
The future roadmap is, first we want to have that the next version is going to be using the Azure Foundry. That's it's in work in progress. Then we already have if I go to my genies, I already have see this new tickets genie. So that's in already work in progress, which is with the materialized view. And then the next thing is we are adding more complexity. So now we are saying empty spaces, all those things. And there are some cool announcements going to be happening in they are going to add more functions to Genie. And that will be more
we will not tell any of them today.
But it will be cool.
And when you meant empty spaces, you mean empty spaces in your warehouse, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then calculate the, they want even more. So even they want to see, we call it as a transfer orders between the warehouses. They want to see, instead of a purchase order, it should say transfer order or purchase order. Oh, one of the other thing is in the regular Genie interface, you can ask them to create a graph, but the Teams interface or the API will not do it. And we already requested, so the Databricks team. And
the idea being in Teams, how can a user say, okay, now I have this table, but I want to see a bar chart showing me something else?
So, but I don't know when it's going to come. And it has a limit, 15 queries per minute. So we actually talked to Databricks, and then they up our limits so that, but even if we tried, we had like 8 or 9 guys simultaneously asking.
Yeah.
By the time they finish, it's not 1 minute. So
and for clarification, the limit is only specific to the API, not in Genie.
That's
and the goal is to make sure that you don't write some query that continues to ping the API and run through costs. So
also, one more thing, the API will only return 500 rows.
Yeah.
So the very first day, the guy asked, list all the SKUs in our warehouse. And then it gave a data error. He said, your thing doesn't work. Then I said, even if it returns all the SKUs, are you going to scroll? Then he said, oh no, then he started. So you have to be careful.
Yeah. We're out of time,
Yeah.
so thank you very much. If you want to, I'm happy to, if you want to ask your question here, but thank you very much for coming, everyone.
Thank you.